Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have some breaking news. Palantir has just partnered with Canadian companies Think Dataworks and Matriana in developing a supply chain resilience platform. The entire world has had their supply chain completely ruined, completely turned upside down, and completely decimated based on what's been happening with COVID. And it got kind of better, and then Delta came, and then it got kind of better, and then Omicron came. Over the past 2 years, supply chain issues has had a major toll on everyone's economy throughout the entire world. This is what has led to supply chain issues, which has led to supply chain bottlenecks, which has also led to rising inflation, because if people don't think there's a lot of goods in the store, they're going to stock up on more goods, which means they're going to put more money into the economy to get more goods, which means there's going to be supply problems, which means demand is going to go up because there's a limited amount of supply. And if there's a limited amount of supply, the prices for things start to go up, which causes more inflation. Palantir has been central throughout the COVID pandemic over the past 2 years to really play a critical role, not only in helping to distribute the vaccine across the entire world and create data analytics software so that companies and governmental organizations could see how the vaccine was being released, but also to actually solve some supply chain issues. The news we're about to get into today shows that Palantir's software is going to be integral and critical in solving the supply chain problems that are going to exist likely for the next 6 to 7, 8 months until Omicron fears go away and until we can start opening up ports and getting things back into place. Let's get into it. So, reading from the press release, Palantir Technologies today announced that it was joining forces with Canadian technology company Think Dataworks, which is a data management company in Canada, and Canada-based auto parts leader Matriana International. They supply auto parts to different car manufacturers, to develop and launch a supply chain resiliency platform solution that will help address the urgent supply chain crisis impacting manufacturers and consumers worldwide. So the goal of this platform is to try to create this resiliency concept that says, okay, if you can integrate this platform through a variety of different organizations, they will be able to have a better check on and balance on ultimately the supply chains that they have and the supply chains that they're going out to all their different vendors. Quote from one of the ministers of innovation, science, and industry in Canada. He says, at a time when the world's supply chains are under pressure, this is exactly the type of project that will help Canada remain at the forefront in terms of resilience, reliability, and innovation. The partnerships developed through Canada's innovation superclusters, such as the one between Think Data, Palantir, and Matriana, will continue to flourish in the years to come and provide economic prosperity and thousands of well-paying jobs across the country. So Canada, just like the United States, has these types of innovation centers. These are part of the government, these are part of different organizations, and they work with companies to make sure that not only we have well-paying jobs for consumers and for just the general public, but we also have the supply chain resiliency to make sure that Canadians or Americans or whatever country you're in actually has the goods that they need. If they go to get milk, there should be milk. If they need to fix a bad tire on their car so they can get to work, the tire needs to be in stock. And you need to have these governmental, private, public partnerships in order to secure those supply chains and in order to make sure those things actually work. Palantir is partnering with these companies in Canada to actually bring a next level of innovation to the supply chain crisis. Now, they address the global supply chain issue head on. They say, as the global supply chain crisis continues to dominate as a critically disruptive factor for every business operating in 2022 and beyond, this solution will enable any organization to introduce a digital representation of their supply chain and combine it with global supply chain events, data, and alternative supplier catalogs from Think Data's external data management software. Working with Matriana, the solution will enable a centralized overview of Matriana's supply chain operations, prediction of alerting to potentially disruptive events, recommended mitigation actions, and ultimately prevent production delays. And this is sort of the key idea around what a supply chain resiliency platform would look like. When Palantir's operating system would incorporate, or their software would incorporate, with an organization that has a complex supply chain, and we've done videos on this before. I've done a couple of videos, I'll leave in the description. Palantir worked with BP, and they saved them a good chunk of money in order to optimize their supply chain. When an organization has a lot of moving parts and they're making something, so let's just take a car. You're making a car, there's thousands and thousands of pieces in the supply chain that have to go into that car actually being produced. There are people at every step of that process making sure there's enough products in place, there's enough things happening, and they have to work out and they have to watch out for different disruptive events that may be happening in order for those things to actually get there. So if you need to get the handle for the door, but there's a disruptive event in Japan because the handle from the door comes from Japan and that's going to be delayed a month, well, then you can't sell that car because no one's going to get into a car if they can't open the door. So there needs to be predictive measures in place. And the idea behind Palantir is if we can prevent those things from happening by using artificial intelligence and machine learning to create actual recommendations based upon the data that is in a centralized software, then we can stop those things from happening and actually make sure they don't happen in the future. So if we know that there's a disruptive event happening in Japan, because the software is able to understand that, oh, Japan's suppliers are not responding in a particular way, which which means there may be something going on, then the system can start recommending, hey, why don't you check out this alternative supplier in Texas? It's going to cost $7 more, which means your margin is going to go down by 30%. But as long as you're able to keep selling enough cars, you can deal with that 30%. It won't hurt bottom line revenue because it has all the cash statements of the company also incorporated into the software, and says if you don't go with the Texas supplier that costs 70% more and it's going to hurt 30% of your margins, then you're going to end up losing like 60% of sales for the end of the year because that car handle from Japan that's not coming is going to delay hundreds of thousands of cars from being sold because we don't know when that process in Japan, or that disruption is going to go away. And if you lose those hundreds of thousands of sales, there's going to lose profitability. So a software being able to actually internalize and understand all of that stuff and come up with that recommendation based upon the complex nature of how that software was created in the first place, and the use case of that software for being the sole purpose to stop those types of things from happening is the idea behind the supply chain resiliency platform. You should use that example that I just talked about if someone ever asks you, how can Palantir help an organization make better decisions? Because if you don't have that software actually looking at all those different variables and all that different data that comes from thousands and millions of different places in one place, and then giving a recommendation to someone who doesn't know how to code, who's a non-technical person who just needs to know what to do if they work in procurement, right? If they just need to order more parts or get it from somewhere else, then that's never going to happen. And bottom line revenue and profits are going to suffer because of that, like it has suffered for the past 20, 30 years with these organizations. And that's why I believe Palantir software is so transformational, especially in the supply chain age. Another quote: the perspectives go far beyond the initial use case. We, Think Data, Matriana, and Palantir, want to transform the way manufacturing companies operate by making it possible for them to not only react better and faster to global events that impact the supply chain, but to begin to predict these type of events before they even happen, says Brian Smith, CEO of Think Data. The value manufacturers and supply chains and supply chain dependent businesses will unlock through this solution will be life altering. Using AI to analyze your complex supply chain alongside global events data through the solution will make organizations feel as though they took the red pill in the Matrix. This is the first time I'm reading the press release, so I didn't even know he said that. They will wake up with a much deeper knowledge and understanding than they ever thought was possible. And yeah, so before I even read this paragraph, I promise I did not read this before. I pretty much just predicted what the guy was saying, right? Like AI and machine learning is going to be able to enable a use of data for your organization and for your supply chain in particular, where you need that data, or you should at least have that data to make these comprehensive decisions in order to launch you into a different stratosphere of advanced intelligent operations for your business. In this case, taking the red pill in the Matrix. By the way, who's watched the Matrix? Leave it in the comment below. I watched it a while ago. It was okay. The new Matrix Resurrected I heard was pretty bad, so I haven't watched that yet. But who's watched the Matrix and who's a fan of it? Also, blue pill or red pill. Okay, final quote. Aside from the current supply chain crisis, the resiliency platform will leverage the data foundation and Palantir Foundry application building tools to enable rapid prototyping and innovation to help the manufacturing industry solve challenges urgently as they arise. This initiative highlights NextGen's focus on enabling transformative advanced manufacturing products. By using proven underlying technologies, the project will enable the industry, the entire industry, to innovate, test hypotheses, and deploy solutions to pressing challenges faster than ever before, supporting digitization and ensuring that the future crises can be met head on. And that's why I think this partnership is also really interesting, because a lot of Canada's innovation center and the people that work there are starting to recognize, hey, if we can work with these American companies that are building some amazing tech and have them partner with our Canadian companies that obviously play an integral role in our community and our global economy, then there is a world in which we can really optimize this stuff to enter the digital millennium of how we can optimize for business decisions in the global markets. All right, my final thoughts and analysis. What does this mean for Palantir? Well, number one, it's another partnership that they're getting into, which is phenomenal, because right now they're in the phase where they're just going to keep working. They're not looking at the stock price. I know the stock price is going down. We hit like $14. I get it, or $14.90. I'm not too concerned about that. I know some of you who don't really know what long-term investing is or can't really stomach what it means to be invested in a growth tech company. You're probably crying over that. Look, at the end of the day, you've got to realize this is what happens when the macro economy falls down, when the 10-year bonds are up to 1.8%, meaning investors are getting more on their money betting on bonds versus stocks. So of course that money is going to get liquidated from the market and go into bonds. This is the nature of kind of how the economy works when interest rates are rising and when the Fed is doing some quantitative tightening. I did a couple videos on what's going on in the economy as well. I'll leave those in the description. So you shouldn't really worry about what's going on to the stock price. You should be worrying about what is the company doing? What has actually changed in the company? And the only thing that's changed is they're unveiling new partnerships to partner with new companies to do new stuff to change the entire world's supply chain operations through data analytics. The second part is this allows them to have a greater grasp on the commercial market in Canada. So if they're working with an auto parts supply chain manufacturer, creating a resiliency platform for their supply chain, well, there's not just one of those auto part manufacturers in Canada. There's a lot. There's a ton of them. And there's not just auto part manufacturers, there's ship manufacturers, there's truck manufacturers, there's airplane manufacturers. There's all these different companies in Canada, we didn't even talk about food, that use supply chains and that are going to need to optimize their businesses and be able to predict when things are happening, have AI actually tell them intelligently what to do when things are happening, and give recommendations and decisions to people who work throughout every part of the supply chain in a meaningful way. These companies have not modernized yet. These companies are part of the total addressable market for Palantir. And as these companies get bigger, the total addressable market is going to get bigger, and Palantir is just going to have more and more clients to go after. So for me, my sort of key takeaway from this press release is that this is another opportunity for Palantir to show how their Foundry application can build an intelligent rapport of data and data analytics software that can be incorporated in any sector, and most importantly, in the supply chain sector. And if that is the case, then there's more commercial clients to go after in different sectors along with Canada, which just means more potential business for Palantir as they grow over the next couple of years. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I think this is phenomenal use. This is good stuff if you're a shareholder. You want to see Palantir partnering with more companies and creating these types of cohesive partnerships where they're actually able to enable their technology in different use cases and show to the world that, hey, if it worked for Matriana with their auto parts suppliers, maybe it can work for you. And if it can work for you, then you should consider using it. And if you consider using it and it makes you more intelligent to the point where you've taken the red pill in the matrix, then that's probably going to mean that there's going to be more business coming Palantir's way. And that's ultimately going to be a good thing for them. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know your comments. Looking forward to reading them. My name is Amit. I'll see you in the next one.